Hey guys, tonight we slip into the Arctic night together, where the sky glows faint green with the ghostly shimmer of northern lights. The snow beneath your boots crunches like brittle glass, and the wind hums its lonely song across a white desert that seems to stretch forever. You tug your coat tighter, though you quickly realize that if you'd been born 1,000 years ago and lived up here, a coat alone wouldn't save you. In fact, you probably wouldn't survive the night without some serious engineering know-how. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening right now, drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone is tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand still for a moment, breathing slow, letting your eyes adjust. The Arctic night is quieter than you expect. The air is so crisp, it almost squeaks when you inhale, and every exhale floats away as a glittery little cloud. Somewhere far away, a dog barks. One of those tough sled dogs with fur like a winter coat and the attitude of a small wolf. Imagine living out here months on end, with nothing but snow, ice, and the occasional caribou for company. Your stomach growls, and you picture yourself gnawing on dried fish, because that's what you'd be eating right now. Then you notice the ground. Beneath that soft surface layer, there's a packed crust of snow that feels as solid as concrete, and that, you realize, is your first clue to tonight's mystery. This snow is not just for throwing at your siblings. It's building material. Historians still argue whether the first Inuit to cut a snow block was a genius inventor or just someone desperate enough to try anything to keep warm. Either way, it worked. Archaeologists tell us Inuit groups had developed snow house technology by at least the 16th century, though oral history might push that timeline back much further. You picture some prehistoric engineer looking at a snowdrift, squinting, and thinking, yeah, I could live in that. You take a few cautious steps forward, feeling the subtle differences in snow texture underfoot. Some snow squeaks, some crunches, and some just gives way like powdered sugar. You crouch down, brushing away the loose surface layer until you hit a compacted base. This is good snow. It's firm, slightly damp, and it holds together when you press a handful into a ball. You can almost hear an old hunter mutter approvingly, "Yes, this will do." A quick aside, this isn't your backyard snowman kind of snow. No, this is specialized Arctic construction snow. Too powdery and it won't hold shape. Too icy and you can't cut it cleanly. The perfect snow has just enough air trapped inside to insulate, but is solid enough to slice with a snow knife. You grin at the thought that this is basically the medieval version of checking whether your bricks are kiln-fired correctly. The wind picks up, fluttering loose fur on your hood, and you hunch your shoulders. Suddenly, the idea of building shelter feels less theoretical and more urgent. You take a slow spin in place, scanning the endless horizon. If you were really out here, you'd be looking for a slight rise where the snow drifts deeper, giving you thick blocks to work with. A low spot might look cozy, but it's a trap. It would fill with drifting snow overnight, and you'd wake up under a white burial mound. You spot a promising snowbank, glistening under the moonlight. You wade through shin-deep powder until you reach it, then stomp around a bit, feeling for even density. That's when you remember. Inuit builders use not just their eyes, but their ears. They could hear the difference when their boots struck snow of the right consistency, a muffled, almost hollow thud that told them, yes, this will stand. You kneel and drag a mitten across the surface, smoothing a space the size of a small room. The snow beneath is surprisingly cooperative. You imagine generations of builders doing this exact gesture, smoothing their future floor while the rest of the hunting party waited nearby. maybe rolling their eyes because this part always took a while. And here comes the first joke of the night. If you're still awake, congratulations. You've just survived the boring part of house construction. Don't worry, there will be more boring parts to come. Your breath fogs the air again, and you think about warmth. Believe it or not, inside one of these snow houses, the temperature can climb from -30 outside to just around freezing inside. Toasty for Arctic standards. It's like stepping from an icebox into, well, a slightly less intense icebox, but your body notices the difference. Early explorers who got invited inside an igloo often reported that after a few minutes, they were sweating enough to take off their mittens. The snow squeaks under your knees as you shift position. You brush aside more loose powder, careful not to dig too deep. Beneath you lies the foundation for a house that could last weeks, even months if properly maintained. Inuit families relied on these homes during long hunting trips, sometimes building and abandoning multiple igloos as they moved across the sea ice. It's a bit like camping, except your tent is made of frozen water and can crush you if built wrong. You pause, looking up at the stars, which seem sharper and closer than they ever do back home. There is no sound now but your own breathing. In this stillness, you almost hear the past, the hiss of a snow knife cutting through crust, the low murmur of voices planning where to put the entrance. Your hands twitch, ready for the next step, choosing the snow, marking your circle, and cutting the first block. For now, though, you just sit back on your heels, taking in the silent majesty of the Arctic night, the strange sense that you are about to be wrapped in a house that nature herself provides. And if you're starting to feel your eyelids droop, don't worry, we've only just started stacking snow. You lean forward, brushing your mittened hand over the snow one more time, feeling oddly proud of this flattened patch you've made. The next step is simple in theory, but strangely ceremonial. You have to choose the perfect snow, and tonight, you're picky. You shuffle your boots in little circles, listening to the sound they make. Soft crunch, sharp squeak, the occasional hollow thunk where drift has settled just right. Inuit builders were basically snow connoisseurs, and right now, so are you. You crouch lower, scooping up a handful and squeezing it. If it crumbles instantly, toss it aside. If it packs into a hard lump that could double as a snowball weapon, that's the stuff you want. Archaeologists have found that Inuit communities often preferred wind-packed snow from the tops of drifts because it had a uniform texture that cut into nice, clean blocks. You grin to yourself, imagining an Arctic home inspector giving a thumbs up. Yep, this is grade A drift snow. Passes code. The snow here smells faintly metallic in the cold, and when you breathe on it, it frosts your scarf in seconds. You scoop up more, pressing handful after handful, just to be sure. There's a weird satisfaction in knowing that this snow will soon be part of the walls keeping you alive. You even start talking to it in your head. Listen here, snow. You're officially hired as insulation. Don't collapse on me later. Historians still argue whether Inuit groups ever used frozen sea ice as a building material. Some records suggest that desperate travelers might carve blocks straight out of shore ice when there wasn't enough snow, though others claim this was a last-ditch move because ice didn't insulate as well. Tonight, you stick with snow. It's warmer, easier to shape, and less likely to give you frostbite when you lick your knife by accident. Don't lick your knife, seriously. You stand up, brush the snow from your knees, and start imagining the floor plan. An igloo isn't just a pile of blocks. It's a carefully planned spiral dome. You pace around your site, planting one boot in the middle as a pivot and swinging the other around in a circle. The snow squeaks, leaving behind a rough chalk line outline of where your walls will rise. You can almost hear a ghostly voice say, "A little bigger, you're going to need room for the dogs." That's right. Sled dogs often slept just outside or even inside a separate snow pen, adding extra warmth with their furry bodies. It's basically free central heating, courtesy of canines. You picture half a dozen dogs curled up nearby, steam rising from their coats, ears twitching in their sleep. You crouch back down and mark out the circle more carefully, widening one side just slightly where the sleeping platform will go. Experienced builders knew that the door had to be positioned carefully too, not facing directly into prevailing winds unless you wanted a snowdrift as a welcome mat by morning. You run a gloved finger through the snow, tracing where the entrance tunnel will eventually go, low and narrow so cold air can't just blow straight in. And here comes tonight's first silly thought. In some ways, you're basically an Arctic interior designer right now. Yes, the couch will go here, the lamp over there, and we'll hang our sealskins on this side for a splash of color. If this were HGTV, the show would be called Extreme Igloo Makeover. Your breath fogs around you as you sit back, satisfied with your imaginary blueprint. Inuit builders worked fast, sometimes constructing a full igloo in less than an hour, but they didn't rush the planning phase. A mistake here could mean an unstable wall later, and nobody wants to be woken up at 2 a.m. by a snow ceiling caving in on their head. You pick up your imaginary snow knife, a long, slightly curved blade, traditionally made of bone, ivory, or later metal, and hold it like a samurai sword. The blade glints in your mind's eye, as if daring you to start cutting. Before you do, you glance around once more, taking in the stillness. The aurora overhead dances in rippling curtains of green, and for a moment you just stand there, boots planted, realizing that this might be the most peaceful job site in the world. You step forward, dig the blade into the packed snow, and score a neat rectangle. The sound is crisp and satisfying, like slicing through a giant block of styrofoam. You lean your weight into it, cutting deeper until the blade hits the base layer. Then you lever the block free, grunting softly as it cops loose. It is shockingly heavy, denser than you expected, and you nearly topple backward before you get a good grip. This is your first brick. You lay it aside with exaggerated care, like a baker setting down a perfect loaf of bread. A thin spray of ice crystals dusts your mittens. You laugh softly to yourself, one block down, about 50 more to go. There's an old story, partly true, partly legend, about hunters competing to see who could build an igloo fastest. Supposedly, one elder could do it so quickly that by the time the others had cut 3 blocks, he was already halfway done. Whether that's true or just bragging rights preserved in oral history, it makes you smile. Tonight, speed isn't the point. Tonight is about building slowly, feeling each step and letting the rhythm of the work lull your brain towards sleep. You cut another block, then another. The pile grows. The ground around you is scuffed with boot marks and knife scores, a testament to the little house slowly forming in your mind. Your shoulders ache pleasantly. The snow squeaks with each cut, the sound oddly hypnotic. You stop for a moment to look at the perfect rectangular slabs you've stacked nearby. They almost seem to glow under the moonlight, promising warmth once you put them in place. Your hands rest on your knees as you take a long, slow breath, letting the cold air sting your nose. The hardest part is yet to come, stacking these heavy blocks into a rising spiral that will eventually curve over your head. But for now, you enjoy this quiet moment. The foundation is chosen, the circle marked, the blocks cut. The snow around you is no longer just snow. It's the first sign of a home. You straighten your back, give your arms a little shake, and look down at the circle you've carved in the snow. This is where the magic happens, where the blocks you just cut turn from a cold, awkward pile into a wall that curves upward like a frozen seashell. You shuffle around the perimeter, dragging the first block into place. It thuds softly as you drop it, landing with just enough give that you can wiggle it snug against the next. The trick, you quickly realize, is that the first row sets the tone for everything else. If you get sloppy here, the whole thing ends up leaning like a frosty version of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Inuit builders knew this instinctively. They didn't just plop blocks down randomly, they angled the first layer slightly inward, already thinking ahead to the dome shape. You kneel and press your mitten against the side, feeling the block sit firmly in its little snow cradle. You keep moving, dragging more blocks into position, slowly working your way around the circle. Each one needs a bit of trimming with your snow knife. The sound is quiet but rhythmic, like someone peeling vegetables in another room. Before long, you've got a complete ring, smooth and tight enough that no cold wind can slip through. You sit back, a little proud, and imagine a passing hunter nodding in approval. Good start. Now make it taller. Historians still argue whether some Inuit groups built the spiral walls from left to right or right to left. Oral traditions vary depending on region. Either way, the spiral is the genius part. Instead of building straight up like a snow fort, you slowly angle each block inward, creating a gentle slope that lets the next row rest naturally on the one below it. This is how you get that satisfying dome shape without needing scaffolding. You heft another block and start the second layer. It overlaps the seams below, locking everything together. By the third block, you find yourself humming softly, lulled by the repetition. Cut, lift, set, trim, press. The Arctic night feels a little warmer now that you're working. Snow dust clings to your mittens and parka. A few flakes sneak down your collar and melt against your skin, making you shiver. Halfway around the circle, you notice the wall is beginning to lean inward ever so slightly. Perfect. It's like watching a spiral staircase materialize in slow motion, except this staircase is horizontal and will soon curve over your head. You crouch lower to sight along the curve, adjusting one block so it lines up better. There's a quiet satisfaction in seeing geometry work this perfectly with nothing but snow and instinct. And here's tonight's first silly thought. If you had a medieval building inspector here, he'd probably give you a gold star, or at least not fine you for code violations. Inuit construction wasn't casual. It was skilled labor, passed down from generation to generation. And if you're still awake, congratulations. You're now a certified apprentice snowmason. You pause for a moment, letting your gaze drift to the horizon. The moon has shifted slightly, throwing long, sharp shadows across the snow. Somewhere out there, you imagine another family building their own shelter, their laughter and soft voices muffled by the wind. This isn't just a lonely job site anymore. It's a village under construction. A dozen little domes sprouting from the tundra like giant white mushrooms. You drag another block into place and find yourself sweating just a little despite the freezing air. That's normal. Inuit builders often strip down to just a base layer while building because they were working hard enough to get overheated. The last thing you want is to soak your clothing with sweat and then sit still later, letting it freeze. You shake your arms and feel the chill quickly wick away the heat, leaving you refreshed. By now, the wall is shoulder height, and you're starting to feel enclosed, sheltered. The wind doesn't hit you quite as hard inside this rising ring. You picture yourself ducking in here later, warm lamp glowing, snow walls radiating quiet calm. You think about the physics involved, how the dome shape evenly distributes weight so it won't collapse, even with a heavy snowstorm piling on top. Modern architects still marvel at how well this design works. You reach for another block, and it's heavier than you expect. You grunt, hoist it up, and nearly drop it on your boot. That would be embarrassing. Survived Arctic winter? Defeated by gravity? You chuckle softly and keep going,
stacking one block after another, until the wall now towers just above your head on one side. You have to angle them a bit more sharply now, coaxing the spiral tighter. One quirky detail you might not know. Some builders would actually sing or chant as they worked, not just for rhythm, but because sound can reveal flaws. If the block gives a hollow thud when set down, it's solid. If it makes a crunchy, uneven sound, it might be weak or too powdery. Tonight you hum to yourself, pretending to be that careful craftsman, listening to the music of good construction. By the time you set the last block of this section, you're crouched low, looking up at your half-finished spiral. It already feels like a room. The moonlight catches on the inner curve, and the snow glows softly, reflecting a pale blue light. You run your hand along the inside wall, feeling the smoothness where you trimmed it just right. You don't say it out loud, but inside your head you whisper, "Home." And that's when you notice something new, the faint quiet that settles around you. The wind outside is muffled now, the air calmer. For the first time tonight, you feel sheltered, as if the night itself is holding its breath, waiting to see if you'll finish the job. You rest for a moment on your heels, letting your breathing slow, your heartbeat settle. The spiral is ready to climb higher, to arch overhead and become a dome. But you're in no rush. There's something deeply satisfying about watching the house grow slowly, block by block, like you're coaxing a living creature to take shape. You drag one more block to the wall and glance at the sky again. The stars seem closer now, framed by the snow circle you've built. You imagine that when you finish, you'll be lying under this dome, listening to the faint drip of melting snow, warm enough to finally sleep without shivering. For now, though, you just breathe in the cold air, brush snow dust from your knees, and prepare to tackle the next step, the moment where the spiral starts to close in and transform into a true roof over your head.
You take a deep breath and look at the wall you've built so far. The top edge tilts inward like a question mark, inviting you to finish what you started. This is the most magical part of the build. The moment when the spiral begins to arch over your head, turning a wall into a ceiling. It's also the trickiest. If you mess up the angle or cut the next block wrong, it won't sit properly, and gravity will be more than happy to teach you a very cold, very humiliating lesson. You drag the next block into position and kneel to shape it carefully. Your snow knife whispers through the surface, shaving off thin curls that catch the moonlight before disappearing into the white floor. Each slice feels precise, almost surgical. Inuit builders knew how to read the snow, its grain, its moisture content, so they'd cut just enough to make a perfect fit. Tonight, you pretend you have that same experience, that somewhere deep inside your memory, you've done this 100 times before. The first roof block locks in beautifully, its inner edge resting on the curve below. You run your hand over it and feel how naturally it joins with the others. This is where the spiral design shines. The wall supports itself as you work. No scaffolding, no wooden beams, just snow, angle, and patience. The dome almost builds itself if you respect its shape. You keep going, one block after another, the opening above you shrinking with each placement. The space inside grows cozier, quieter. The wind outside has dropped further. Now you can hear the soft hiss of your own breath and the occasional squeak of snow under your boots. It feels like the night has retreated, giving you this bubble of stillness to finish your work. Halfway through the roof, you have to crouch low, twisting to wedge each block at a steeper angle. The spiral tightens. Each piece you cut is slightly smaller, slightly more curved, as though the igloo is teaching you how to finish it properly. There's a quiet thrill in seeing the gap close, like zipping up the sky. You pause and sit back on your heels for a moment. The opening above is now just a round patch of stars.
They look even brighter framed by the snow, like a tiny observatory window. For a second, you consider leaving it open, turning this into a stargazing hut. But you know better. Warmth will escape, snow might drift in, and besides, the best part is yet to come. You carve the final few blocks, heart beating a little faster. This is the keystone moment, literally. The last piece that will hold the entire dome together. Traditionally, this block is shaped like a wedge and dropped carefully into place from the outside, sometimes with the helper holding it steady while the builder trims from within. Tonight, you imagine someone out there handing you the block with a grin, saying, "Go on, finish it." You raise it, fit it carefully, and with a gentle push, it clicks into place. Just like that, the dome is whole. The circle of sky vanishes, replaced by a glowing snow ceiling. The space is suddenly enclosed, safe. You sit in silence, feeling the air grow warmer almost immediately. It's still cold, of course, but the wind no longer claws at you. Now comes the finishing touch, the smoothing of the interior. You crawl around inside, scraping the seams with your snow knife until the walls are even, rounding out any awkward angles. This isn't just about looks. Smooth walls are stronger, less likely to drip. Soon, the interior glows like a lantern, light bouncing softly off every curve. You cut a small doorway low to the ground and push the snow black out, crawling through into the night. The outside world feels different now, colder, bigger, but when you turn back to look, the igloo seems to smile at you. A perfect white dome under the stars. You gather a few more blacks to make a small entrance tunnel, just enough to keep the wind from sneaking in. Once it's done, you crawl back inside and sit down cross-legged in the center. The silence is almost complete. You can hear your own heartbeat, the faint crunch as you shift your weight. You breathe out, watching your breath curl like smoke, and realize you've made a home. Temporary, fragile, but real. And here's the strange part. You feel proud, not just tired. The act of building has turned this patch of snow into something that belongs to you. For a medieval farmer, for an Inuit family, for anyone who's ever faced a harsh winter, this feeling must have been the real victory. Not just surviving, but creating a place where you could sit, share warmth, and wait for the sun to return. You imagine lighting a small lamp, hearing its faint crackle as it warms the air. Soon, the inside would feel almost cozy, the walls sweating tiny beads of meltwater. You'd lie down on a bed of caribou hides or spruce boughs and feel the day's effort drain out of your muscles. And before you know it, your eyelids would grow heavy. The quiet would creel you like a blanket, and the igloo would become more than shelter. It would become a lullaby in solid form. You stretch your legs, lean back against the curve of the wall, and close your eyes for just a second, breathing in the cool, clean smell of snow. The wind outside whispers across the tundra, but in here, you are warm and safe and ready to drift off. The year may have been hard. The cold may have been cruel, but tonight, under this perfect dome of snow, you've built yourself a little piece of peace. You wake up, or maybe you never quite fell asleep, just floated there in that half-dreamy state, stretching inside your snow dome. The air feels warmer, or maybe it's just your body heat finally doing its job. Either way, you're ready for the next step, making this chilly bubble actually livable. Your first job is stacking more blocks, but this time they're not going upward. they're going inward. You carve out the inside space to create a bench-like platform along one wall. This isn't just furniture. It's clever science disguised as interior design. By sleeping on a raised platform, you keep yourself above the coldest air, which naturally sinks to the lowest point near the floor. Medieval peasants had their straw lofts for the same reason. Heat rises, so you go where the heat is. You sit on the platform, running your gloved hand across the snow. It's surprisingly sturdy, smooth and cool like marble. You imagine it covered with caribou hides, maybe even a woven mat if you're lucky. Here, you could sit cross-legged while eating a bowl of seal stew, talking with friends as the lamplight flickers across the walls. The igloo's spiral dome curves around you like a perfect piece of geometry. The blocks overhead look like puzzle pieces frozen in midair, each one slightly tilted to keep the weight distributed evenly. Historians still argue whether Inuit builders used instinct, trial and error, or a kind of passed-down geometry when creating these spirals. You suspect it was a mix of all three, math that lived in the hands rather than on paper. You grab another block and carve it to fit, adding a little ledge for storage. It feels good to customize the space, turning it from a mere shelter into a home. You picture lining up tools, spare mittens, maybe even a pair of boots drying by the lamp. The igloo is basically your Arctic studio apartment now, and you're its proud interior designer. Outside, the wind picks up again, howling low across the tundra. You hear the faint yip of a sled dog somewhere far off. For a moment, you think about the dogs that might have been tethered outside igloos centuries ago, their fur crusted with frost as they curled up against one another for warmth. It's a reminder that survival here wasn't just human teamwork, it was interspecies teamwork. Dogs hauled supplies, sniffed out danger, and occasionally tried to sneak into the igloo when it was too cold to sleep outside. You finish smoothing the platform and sit back to admire your work. The igloo feels more balanced now, more complete. You light a mental candle of gratitude to whoever figured this out first. Without platforms, everyone would be huddled on the ground, shivering together. With them, you get better airflow, better comfort, and honestly, better vibes. You lean against the wall and close your eyes again, feeling how the quiet presses in around you. There's something about this place that makes the world outside seem far away, like you're inside a secret. The snow absorbs sound, turning your breathing into the loudest thing you hear. The faint drip of melting snow is like a clock ticking softly somewhere nearby. Then you remember that next comes the roof gap, the moment where the dome finally seals itself from the sky. You crawl outside, find the last block you cut, and carefully push it into place from above. You scurry back in to check your work. Perfect. The ceiling is smooth, glowing faintly as moonlight filters through the snow. You take your knife and shave the last rough edges from the seams, polishing the walls until they're almost glossy. The more you smooth, the more the interior looks like a sculpture, round, seamless, inviting. When you pause, you notice your own breath condensing on the wall, forming tiny, glittering crystals. You sit on the sleeping platform, running your fingers over the snow again. It's cold, sure, but you know it will soon warm up enough that this platform becomes a cozy little bed. Maybe you'd share it with family or friends, everyone lined up shoulder to shoulder, under heavy furs, snoring softly. There's something deeply satisfying in this process. You've taken raw snow, something that could have buried you, and turned it into something that shelters you. This is the human superpower, transforming danger into safety, chaos into order. You take one last look at the door tunnel and decide it's time to crawl outside just to feel the contrast. The night air hits you like a slap, sharp and dry. The stars above glitter so fiercely they almost hurt to look at. For a second, you just stand there, letting the cold gnaw at your cheeks, then dive back in. The difference is immediate. The igloo feels warm by comparison, like stepping into a heated cabin. You grin in the dark. This is it. This is how people survived winters so brutal that they could kill in minutes. Not with castles, not with roaring fireplaces, but with geometry, teamwork, and a really good snow knife.
The dome hovers just one step from perfection now. You kneel in the half-light, looking up at the gap above your head. It's small, only big enough to glimpse a few stubborn stars that refuse to be shut out, but you can still feel the wind sneaking through, poking you like icy fingers. Time to finish what you started. You crawl outside again, your boots crunching softly in the snow. The cold is sharper now, as though it resents that you dared to build a pocket of warmth in its territory. You find the last block you've cut, a perfect wedge, just slightly wider on one side, and heft it carefully. This is the keystone, the one piece that makes the whole thing an actual roof instead of a very fancy snow collar. Sliding it into place from the outside is surprisingly tricky. You push, wiggle, and adjust, your breath puffing out in white clouds as you work. Finally, with one satisfying thunk, the block settles in, fitting so well that you almost can't see the seam. You crawl back through the tunnel and sit in silence. Something has changed. The wind is gone. The faint, starry light has been replaced by a soft, diffuse glow, as though the whole dome has turned into a lantern. The air is still cold, but there's no more draft creeping across your neck. You've just turned a circle of snow blocks into a single, self-supporting shell. You let out a low whistle, impressed. The design still feels like a little miracle, even though it's been around for centuries. Historians still argue whether Inuit engineers discovered the spiral dome technique independently or adapted it from contact with other Arctic peoples. But either way, you can feel the intelligence baked into every curve. The weight is distributed perfectly, the blocks press against each other in harmony, and gravity is forced to behave. You lie back on your elbows, staring at the ceiling. It feels oddly intimate, like being inside a giant snow globe that someone just turned upside down and set carefully on a shelf. The soundscape changes too. Outside, the wind shrieks, but inside, you only hear a muted hum, a distant hush. You've made silence itself into furniture. Next, you crawl over to the entrance and carve it down even lower. This is another genius part of the design, a cold trap. Since cold air sinks, it collects in the lowest point near the door tunnel, leaving the main chamber slightly warmer. It's passive climate control, centuries before thermostats. You chuckle to yourself. Imagine explaining to a medieval farmer that your house has built-in HVAC and it's made entirely of snow. You smooth the edges around the tunnel so you don't snag your parka going in and out, then step back to admire your handiwork. The entrance now feels more like a proper hallway than a hole. And as you crawl back inside, you notice how the igloo holds on to the warmth of your body and breath. It's subtle, but the temperature has risen just enough that your fingers no longer sting. You settle back on your platform, running your hands over the smooth inner wall. The surface is faintly wet. Your own body heat has melted it just a little. This is intentional. Inuit builders counted on the inside layers softening slightly and then refreezing, creating an icy crust that seals cracks and strengthens the structure. You're basically glazing your snow house like a donut, only this glaze makes it safer instead of tastier. The space feels cozy now, intimate. You imagine a tiny lamp burning in the corner, filling the chamber with golden light. The walls would sparkle as the temperature climbed a few degrees. Soon you could take off your outer parka and hang it on a peg carved into the snow. The igloo was no longer just a wall against the storm. It's a room, a hearth, a living space. You think about the trust it must have taken to sleep under a ceiling held up entirely by snow. One wrong cut, one careless block, and the whole thing could collapse. But you also think about the quiet confidence that comes with knowing this design has been tested by generations. People have been building igloos longer than your country probably has existed. You stretch out on the platform, imagining yourself part of that lineage, part of the story of survival that this dome represents. You imagine a family crowding in with you, children giggling, dogs barking outside, the smell of food simmering in a pot over the lamp. The igloo becomes a place not just of survival, but of life, where birthdays are celebrated, stories are told, and jokes are shared. Outside, the wind howls again, louder this time, but it only makes the inside feel safer. You smile in the half-dark, knowing that you could ride out a storm here, warm enough to rest, protected enough to dream. Your eyes grow heavy. You feel the day's effort in your shoulders, the rhythm of your breath slowing. Maybe you drift off for a moment, the dome rocking you like a cradle. And when you wake up, you realize you've done it. You've taken a world of snow and sculpted it into something almost magical, a shelter that is as beautiful as it is practical. And all it took was a little geometry, a good knife, and a lot of stubbornness. You wake slowly, blinking at the dim light filtering through the dome. The ceiling glows like frosted glass, a faint reminder that outside, the sun is probably peeking over the horizon, or maybe not. Up here, day and night are more suggestions than rules. You sit up on your platform, stretch your shoulders, and realize the igloo already feels warmer than when you fell asleep. But there's still one weak point, the doorway. Right now, it's just a rough hole that lets you crawl in and out, which means it also lets the cold air rush straight inside. If you want to make this place truly snug, you need to build the full entrance tunnel. You shuffle toward the opening and kneel down, knife in hand. It's careful work. If you carve too much, you could compromise the strength of the dome where the wall meets the ground. You start by shaving away snow on the outside, extending the tunnel forward until it's just long enough to block the wind. Then you drop to your stomach, wriggle inside, and carve the interior lower, deep enough that the tunnel floor dips below the level of the igloo floor. This little dip is a game changer. Cold air, being heavier, naturally pulls at the lowest point. That means it will sink into the tunnel while the warmer air stays up here in the main chamber with you. Inuit builders understood this principle intuitively long before thermodynamics was a thing. Historians still argue whether this low door design was discovered through trial and error or passed along through oral tradition, but either way, it's brilliant. When you crawl back inside, you feel the difference almost immediately. There's no more sneaky breeze chilling your ankles. The air is calmer, quieter, like the igloo just exhaled and decided to relax. You sit back on the platform, grinning. Your snow house is now a fortress of comfort. You take a moment to tidy the entrance, trimming the sides so they're smooth and just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. You even carve a little lip at the outside edge, a raised snow step that will help keep blowing snow from drifting straight inside. The whole thing is so low you have to belly crawl to get in or out, but that's part of the charm. It feels secret, like you're sliding into a hideout or a childhood pillow fort. You imagine a visitor approaching, maybe a fellow traveler, maybe a curious neighbor, tapping politely on the roof or calling out before poking their head inside. There was a kind of etiquette for this, a recognition that the igloo was both public and private space. People knew to wait until they were invited in, because barging through the entrance unannounced could literally bring a rush of cold air and ruin the warm equilibrium inside. You crawl outside once more and take in the view. Your igloo looks even more complete with the little tunnel attached, like a giant snow turtle resting on the tundra. The wind skims over the roof and around the entrance, leaving the inside untouched. Standing there, you think about medieval peasants in Europe trying to keep warm in their drafty cottages. They'd stuff straw into the cracks of their walls, hang animal hides over doorways, anything to keep the winter air from stealing their warmth. Here, with just a few well-placed blocks of snow, you've achieved the same goal, probably better. Your entrance tunnel is basically an Arctic mudroom, keeping the outside out. Satisfied, you crawl back through the tunnel and plop down on the sleeping platform. You run your hand along the smooth interior wall, admiring how the surface is slowly hardening as it refreezes. Soon, it will be shiny, almost glassy, sealing in your heat even more effectively. You imagine lighting a lamp and watching the moisture in your breath form tiny crystals near the tunnel entrance. The warm air will rise, collect near the ceiling, and slowly circulate, creating a microclimate that's much more forgiving than the brutal outside world. Scientists today still study the thermal properties of igloos because they're so efficient. It's like the original green architecture, built entirely from renewable materials that melt harmlessly away when spring comes. You lean back against the wall and let your eyes close for a moment, feeling the stillness wrap around you. It's almost too quiet now. So quiet you can hear the faint patter of snowflakes landing outside. The igloo is more than a shelter now. It's a sanctuary. And you can't help but laugh softly to yourself. Somewhere, someone is paying thousands of dollars to stay in a snow hotel with faux fur throws and fancy cocktails served in ice glasses. But you've just built your own for free, and it's probably warmer. You lie back and breathe in slowly, letting your lungs fill with cool, clean air. The doorway tunnel has done its job. The storm can rage outside, but in here, you're as snug as a medieval monk under a pile of hay blankets. And tonight, you know you'll sleep better for it. You sit up again, stretching, and glance around the interior. It's good, warm enough to sit without shivering, quiet enough to hear the faint hiss of your own breath. But you know it can be better. The walls are still a little rough, the seams showing where each block meets the next. And here's where the real artistry comes in, the smoothing. You grab your snow knife and crawl to the nearest wall. The surface is firm under your glove, but you shave it lightly anyway, sending tiny curls of snow drifting to the floor like feathers. The sound is soft, almost meditative. Scritch, 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 as you work your way along the seam. Bit by bit, you erase the lines until the blocks look like a single piece of curved ice. This is more than just decoration. Smoothing the walls helps the igloo keep heat better. The finer the surface, the easier it is for the inner layer to melt slightly and refreeze, forming a thin, glassy crust. That crust acts like a seal, stopping warm air from escaping and keeping the dome strong. Modern researchers have even tested this in controlled settings, finding that a polished igloo can hold a temperature difference of up to 40 degrees Fahrenheit warmer inside than outside. That's the difference between numb fingers and a comfortable night's sleep. You crawl in a slow circle, working carefully, your breath fogging the air as you go. Every scrape of the blade makes the walls gleam a little more. Soon they're glossy, catching the faint light filtering through the snow and reflecting it like the inside of a pearl. The entire room feels brighter somehow, more alive. It's strangely satisfying, like cleaning up after a messy project and seeing the finished result finally come together.
You pause for a moment and sit cross-legged, looking around with a little smile. This is no longer a pile of snow blocks, it's a proper room, and you built it with your own hands. Your fingers brush the wall again and come away damp. The surface is just beginning to soften, responding to the gentle heat from your body. You know that over the next hour or two, the walls will sweat, and then that moisture will freeze into a hard layer. In a way, the igloo is alive. It's adapting, strengthening itself as you inhabit it. Medieval farmers would have understood this instinctively. Their wattle and daub houses hardened with time too, mud drying and cracking into place as fires warmed the room. You shift onto your knees and reach overhead, smoothing the top curve of the dome. It's tricky, your shoulders brushing against the ceiling as you work, but soon that too was even and polished. The acoustics change. The room now has a soft, round echo when you breathe or shuffle, like the inside of a drum. Somewhere outside, a gust of wind sends snow drifting over the tunnel entrance. The sound is muffled, almost cozy, as though someone has pulled an extra blanket over the house. You imagine the snow piling up around the sides, adding even more insulation. Paradoxically, the deeper winter gets, the warmer this place will feel. You sit back again and grin. This step might be the most satisfying so far, not just building the house, but perfecting it. Like sharpening a blade or polishing a piece of wood. There's a meditative rhythm to it. You find yourself slowing down, matching the calm of the space around you. For fun, you carve a tiny alcove into the wall near your platform, a little shelf just big enough for a lamp or a small bowl. You smooth it carefully so it doesn't crumble, then sit back to admire your craftsmanship. A real interior designer would be proud. Then you lie back on the sleeping platform and stare up at the glowing ceiling. The light is diffused and soft, like a paper lantern, and the air feels warmer now, still, serene. You could almost forget the tundra outside, the endless white stretching to the horizon. Historians still debate whether early European explorers truly understood the genius of the igloo when they first encountered it. Some journals gush about how astonishingly warm they were inside. Others dismiss them as primitive. But you, sitting here now, know the truth. This is one of the most elegant shelters humans have ever invented. You let your eyes close, letting the silence seep into your bones. The walls are smooth, the air is still, the tunnel is keeping the cold where it belongs. For the first time since stepping onto this frozen plain, you feel not just safe, but comfortable. And maybe, just maybe, a little sleepy.
You sit up again, reluctant to let yourself drift off just yet. There's one last step, the one that will turn this place from merely shelter into home. From your pack, you pull out the small, shallow stone lamp. It's no bigger than your palm, carefully carved to hold oil in a wick. This is the kind of lamp used by Inuit families for centuries, called a kwalik, and it was far more than just a light source. It was their heater, their stove, their guardian flame. You place it carefully on the little alcove you carved earlier. Then you pull out a small pouch of oil, pour just enough to coat the lamp's basin, and set the wick in place. Your hands are steady as you strike a spark. The flame catches with a soft fsh, a tiny bloom of yellow against the white walls. At first it's small, flickering as if unsure, but soon it steadies into a soft glow. The igloo responds immediately. Shadows dance across the polished walls, the ceiling seems to warm to a golden hue, and the space feels alive. You hold your hands over the flame, feeling the faintest kiss of warmth. It's not much, not yet, but here in this sealed dome, every bit of heat matters. You know the walls will absorb it, just as they absorbed the warmth of your body earlier. Soon,
They'll radiate that heat back, creating a microclimate that might be 20, even 30 degrees warmer than outside. You shrug out of your outermost parka, leaving just your mid-layer. The air is still cool, but not biting. For the first time all day, you feel you can relax without worrying about frost creeping into your fingers and toes. There's a certain intimacy in this moment. The outside world might as well not exist. The howling wind, the vast empty tundra, the endless horizon. In here, there is just you, the curved snow walls, and the soft glow of the lamp. You lie back on the platform again, propping yourself on an elbow to watch how the light plays over the smooth ceiling. The walls glitter faintly where they've started to glaze over, little crystals catching the firelight. The entire room feels like a lantern from the inside, warm and safe. You think about how many generations have done exactly this. Hunters, travelers, whole families sitting around a similar lamp, their shadows dancing across the dome as they cooked or talked softly before sleeping. It's almost humbling, being part of such a lineage of survival and ingenuity. Eventually, you adjust the wick so the flame burns lower, just enough to keep a little heat going without filling the room with smoke. You tuck yourself into your sleeping bag and feel the platform under you supporting your weight comfortably. It's firm, but not hard, and the snow beneath will hold your body heat like an insulated mattress. You exhale slowly. Your breath no longer rises in a big cloud, just a faint mist. That means it's working. The space is already warmer. You feel an odd mixture of pride and peace. You've built something from nothing, turned a hostile landscape into a refuge. Outside, the night stretches cold and dark, but here in this glowing dome, you are protected. Your eyelids grow heavy. The lamp flickers softly, its golden light making the room pulse as though it's breathing with you. And as you let yourself drift towards sleep, you know that tomorrow will bring a new challenge: hunting, traveling, surviving. But for tonight, you have everything you need. The igloo hums softly around you, its silence almost a lullaby. And for the first time since you set foot on this frozen world, you truly rest. Morning comes softly, though you wouldn't know it from any sunrise. Out here in the Arctic, the light is more of a gradual shift, blackness turning to a faint, blue-gray glow. You stir awake, blinking at the soft golden dome around you. The lamp's wick burned out sometime during the night, leaving only the faint scent of char and a thin line of soot on the wall above it. You stretch inside your sleeping bag, feeling that the air is noticeably warmer than it was last night. The igloo has done its job beautifully. Your breath forms barely any mist now, which means the interior temperature might be right around freezing, positively tropical compared to the -30 wind chill just a meter away. You wriggle out of the bag and stand carefully, noting how your head almost brushes the ceiling. You press one mittened hand against the wall and find it solid, with a thin layer of ice forming over the blocks from last night's moisture. Exactly as planned. It's stronger now than when you built it. You might even get several more nights out of this shelter if you stayed put. Before stepping outside, you pause to appreciate the stillness. The igloo muffles the outside world so effectively that it's almost eerie. You could almost believe the storm has passed until you pull open the entrance tunnel. A blast of cold air hits your face like a slap, and fine snow swirls in through the opening. You duck your head and crawl through the tunnel, popping out into the frozen world once more. The storm did not pass. Wind tears across the tundra, snow whipping in white sheets that obscure the horizon. You can barely see 20 meters ahead. The air tastes metallic and raw, and the cold stings your cheeks instantly. And yet, you're fine. Your gear is dry, your body is rested, your mind is clear. You glance back at the igloo, its smooth dome half buried already in drifted snow. It looks like part of the landscape, blending seamlessly with the earth. And you feel a surge of respect for the generations who figured this out, not just how to survive, but how to do so with elegance and efficiency. Historians still argue whether igloos were used primarily as temporary hunting shelters or as semi-permanent family homes, depending on the region. Either way, their genius is undeniable. Here you are, having faced one of the harshest nights imaginable, and you came through unscathed because of an idea perfected over centuries. You crouch by the entrance and block part of the wind with your body as you cook a quick breakfast over your small portable stove, something the Inuit way have done with seal oil, carefully rationed. You sip hot tea and feel the heat bloom through your chest, and suddenly you can almost imagine laughing about this whole experience later. The wind howls around you, but you are not its victim. You have shelter, you have fire, you have food. You have proven that even in a place where nature shows no mercy, human ingenuity can carve out a pocket of safety, warmth, and calm. When you finish eating, you pack up your stove and supplies, seal the entrance of the igloo with a block of snow to keep it intact for possible reuse, and stand up to face the storm. You take a deep breath, letting the icy air burn your lungs for a moment, and then you smile under your hood. You're ready. Because no matter how fierce the world becomes, you know how to build yourself a little circle of light, warmth, and quiet. And that knowledge will carry you through many more nights like this. You adjust your pack, turn into the wind, and start walking. The igloo grows smaller behind you until it's just a bump on the horizon, then nothing but memory. But the feeling it gave you, security, pride, the deep comfort of human craft against chaos, that you carry forward. And as the snow crunches under your boots and the endless sky swirls overhead, you can't help but think, you might just survive this after all. Hours pass as you trudge through the snow, guided more by instinct than by sight. The storm hasn't let up much, but your body feels lighter now, less frantic, more deliberate. You've proven to yourself you can survive one night alone. Still, you know deep down that survival is easier when you're not doing it all by yourself. Through the blowing snow, you spot movement ahead. At first, you think it's just the wind shaping drifts, but then you notice the steady, rhythmic motion of figures working together. You get closer and see them clearly. A small group of Inuit, perhaps 5 or 6, dressed head to toe in traditional fur clothing. They are building an igloo. Not one, but several, each at a different stage of construction. 2 are carving blocks from a nearby snow pit. 1 is inside a half-finished dome, carefully setting the spiral upward. 2 others are packing snow into gaps from the outside. It's mesmerizing, almost like a dance. Each person seems to know exactly what to do, when to step aside, when to offer a block, when to smooth the wall with the practiced sweep of the hand. There's no shouting, no rushing, just the quiet, coordinated effort, the kind that comes from generations of passing knowledge down. You stand for a moment, just watching. The snowstorm blurs the edges of everything, making it feel dreamlike. Finally, one of them notices you. A man waves, and you wave back, trudging closer. They greet you warmly, smiling despite the wind. You exchange a few words, just enough to explain where you came from and that you survived the night thanks to your own igloo. The man nods, clearly approving. There's a glint of respect in his eyes, as if you've passed some invisible test. You watch as they work, and they invite you to help. You take up a snow knife and, guided by a quiet nod, carve a block, surprised at how quickly you've picked up the feel for it. Soon you're part of their rhythm, passing blocks, tamping snow, even crawling inside the dome to help shape the last few rows. The warmth of teamwork is almost as real as the warmth of the lamp you lit last night. There's something deeply comforting about building together, laughing when a block crumbles and helping each other reshape it. One of the older women explains, over the howl of the wind, that their group builds a small cluster of igloos when traveling, one for sleeping, one for storing meat, and sometimes a larger one for gathering and cooking. Historians still argue whether such arrangements counted as villages or just temporary camps. But standing here, watching it happen, you can't deny it feels like a village. By the time the last keystone block is set in place, you've almost forgotten the storm. The finished igloo gleams softly in the dim light, its curves perfect, its seams invisible. When you crawl inside with them, it feels instantly welcoming, larger and more communal than yours had been. A small kulik lamp is lit, and everyone sits in a circle. The air quickly grows warmer, and someone passes around strips of dried fish. You chew slowly, grateful for both the food and the company. You realize that while last night was a personal victory, tonight is something richer. Survival isn't just about making it through. It's about sharing warmth, sharing labor, sharing stories. The igloo seems to glow from within, the sound of the storm outside reduced to a soft, distant roar. You listen as they talk quietly, in their own language, the words flowing like water, and though you don't understand them, you catch the tone, gentle, calm, at peace despite the chaos outside. You think, this is what humans have always done. Gathered together, built something with their hands, made a little pool of light and warmth in a world that can be cold and cruel. And you feel, strangely, that you've come home.
The communal igloo smells faintly of smoke and seal oil, a cozy, earthy scent that clings to the fur parkas hanging near the entrance. The kulik lamp burns low, but steady, casting a warm circle of light that makes the snow walls glow like pale amber glass. You sit cross-legged among them, shoulders brushing against your neighbors, and feel a rare sense of belonging in this frozen wilderness. Soon, dinner begins. One of the hunters unwraps a bundle of food, passing around strips of dried caribou meat and pieces of frozen fish. The meat is tough at first, but once it warms in your mouth, it releases a rich, gamey flavor that satisfies in a way no energy bar from your pack ever could. Someone else offers a small bowl of broth, warm and slightly salty, made from boiled bones. It feels like drinking liquid life. You watch how they eat, unhurried and with quiet appreciation. No one wastes a bite. Even the bones are eventually cracked open for marrow, which is considered a delicacy. Historians still argue whether early Arctic diets were almost entirely carnivorous or whether plant material, like berries and seaweed, played a bigger role than records suggest. Either way, tonight's meal leaves you both full and warmed from the inside out. After everyone eats, the mood shifts from survival mode to something softer. One of the younger men leans back against the wall and begins telling a story. You don't understand every word, but the cadence is mesmerizing, the kind of voice that could put children to sleep even as the wind outside screams. The others smile and chuckle at the familiar tale, and one of the women translates the gist for you. It's about a hunter who was outsmarted by a very clever seal. You laugh with them, the sound mingling with theirs, and for a moment, you forget the hostile world outside. The evening becomes a kind of impromptu storytelling circle. They share hunting stories, some triumphant, some funny, some a little eerie. One man describes tracking a polar bear across miles of snow, only to have the animal double back and watch him from a ridge, as if deciding whether to attack. "It let me go," he says with a shrug. "Maybe it wasn't hungry." You can't help but shiver, not entirely from the cold.
Another story is about a winter so fierce that families connected their igloos with tunnels so they could visit each other without facing the storm. You picture an entire network of glowing domes under the snow, linked together like a secret village. The image stays with you, people finding ways to make even the most unforgiving season into something communal. They also laugh a lot at each other, at the weather, even at the hard parts of life. One woman makes a joke about how you carved your first block too thin earlier, miming how it cracked in half. Everyone chuckles, including you. It feels good, this shared amusement, proof that even here, humor survives. The conversation eventually grows quieter. The wind outside continues its relentless song, but inside the igloo, it's warm, almost stuffy. Someone adjusts the lick of the kulik, lowering the flame so the heat doesn't melt the roof too quickly. You lie back against the wall, feeling the packed snow surprisingly supportive, and let the soft chatter wash over you. The glow of the lamp, the gentle smell of oil smoke, the faint creak of the snow dome as it settles, these become a lullaby. You think back to last night, alone in your own shelter, and realize how much richer this experience is. Surviving is good, but sharing survival, laughing and eating together turns a bare night into a memory. Your eyes start to close. You catch fragments of the last story, something about the northern lights being the spirits of ancestors playing ball with a walrus skull, and smile at the image. The kulik burns a little lower. The igloo breathes with quiet warmth. And in the middle of the Arctic, surrounded by strangers who no longer feel strange, you drift into the easiest sleep you've had in a long time. You wake to the sound of quiet movement. The communal igloo is dim, the lamp extinguished, and the others are already bundling into their fur parkas, their breath visible in faint white puffs. Someone nudges you gently and gestures toward the entrance tunnel. Time to get up. Time to join them. You follow the group outside, crawling through the tunnel and standing in the blinding morning light. The storm has passed at last. The sky is a pale, icy blue, and the snow stretches in a smooth, unbroken sheet all the way to the horizon. The silence is profound after so many hours of howling wind. Today, you're going hunting. Two men show you how to check the snares first. Simple loops of sinew set near low ridges where Arctic hares tend to run. The snow here is covered in tiny tracks, and soon one of the snares yield a catch. The hunter retrieves the hare with practiced hands, thanking it softly before tucking it into his pack. It's a small catch, but in this environment, every bite counts. You move on together across the snow, skis sliding smoothly underfoot, following faint trails. One of the hunters points out polar fox tracks, explaining that they sometimes scavenge from traps or follow human scent, hoping for leftovers. Historians still argue whether Inuit groups saw these foxes primarily as pests, hunting competition, or as opportunistic allies that pointed toward game. Today, though, no foxes are in sight, just the quiet, pristine snow. Later, you help them set a few new traps, learning how they place them strategically, sometimes covering them with snow to blend in. The hunters show you how they look for subtle signs, tiny depressions in the snow where an animal's body heat has slightly melted the surface, a broken twig, a patch of disturbed powder that marks a rabbit's leap. The work is slow and methodical, but strangely meditative. Each step is deliberate, every movement careful, because wasting energy out here is not an option. By mid-morning, you head toward the coast, where a seal hunting site is marked by faint holes in the ice. One of the hunters kneels silently, listening. The group explains that they wait for hours sometimes, motionless, for a seal to surface. Today, they don't plan to hunt seriously. They just check the sites and look for fresh breathing holes. You try kneeling beside them, feeling the stillness press in. The only sound is the faint cracking of sea ice somewhere in the distance. You realize just how much patience this life demands. When you rise to leave, you notice how they cover each hole carefully again with snow, preserving the location for next time. Nothing is wasted, not effort, not opportunity. By the time you all return to camp, the sun is low in the sky, though it never rises high this time of year. Your legs ache from walking through deep snow, but there's a strange pride in the ache. You've earned it. The hunters clean the hair quickly with minimal fuss, saving every usable part: meat, bones, fur. One of the women begins to prepare it for stew inside the igloo, mixing it with stored fat and bits of dried herbs. You catch the smell as you crawl back in and sit down near the wall, and your stomach growls loudly enough to make one of the men laugh. As the pot simmers, you reflect on the morning. Survival isn't dramatic here. It's not a battle every second, but rather a series of small, careful decisions made day after day. And in this calm rhythm of work, you find yourself feeling oddly grounded, as though the land itself is teaching you something. When the stew is ready, you eat slowly, savoring the rich broth. The hair tastes wild and slightly sweet, perfectly satisfying after a morning in the cold. You glance around at your companions, their faces illuminated by the glow of the lamp, and think, maybe survival isn't just about keeping your body alive. Maybe it's about learning how to be fully present in the world you find yourself in, even when that world is frozen and white and endlessly quiet. You lie back after the meal, body pleasantly tired, and feel a deep, calm contentment settle in. Tomorrow, you suspect, will bring more lessons.
As the day fades into the long Arctic twilight, everyone returns to the igloo cluster. The sky glows pale pink and gold, reflecting off the snow so brightly it almost hurts your eyes. The air is calm now, and the silence feels almost sacred. Back inside, work begins again. Not the frantic kind of labor meant to stave off death, but the quiet maintenance that keeps life comfortable. Two of the men scrape loose snow from the inside of the dome where it's begun to frost over too much, keeping the surface smooth so drips won't form when the lamp is lit. Another person carefully reshapes the tunnel entrance, adding a slight bend so less wind can sneak inside. You're handed a flat scraper and shown how to pack snow around the outside wall to strengthen it. The process feels oddly soothing. Press smooth, until the igloo looks as seamless as a pearl. There's a shared satisfaction when the last patch is firmed up, like everyone just added a few more nights of safety to the shelter's lifespan. Once inside again, someone lights the kulik. The warm glow spreads across the walls, and soon the space feels cozy, familiar. The smell of cooked hair still lingers faintly, mixing with the faintly sweet scent of burning oil. This evening, conversation turns to the seasons. One of the hunters gestures toward the horizon, explaining how the position of the moon and the behavior of the wind help them predict weather. He points out a faint halo around the moon, an ice halo, and nods. "Snow coming," someone translates for you. You lean closer, fascinated, as they talk about reading the sky. Pale clouds forming high above mean a storm in a day or two. Wind shifting suddenly from the north means colder weather is on the way. You realize this knowledge is as crucial as any tool. They are walking barometers, able to plan hunts and travel simply by looking up. Historians still argue whether early Inuit relied more on oral weather lore or on observing animal behavior, but listening to these people, you suspect it was both. One man mentions how dogs sometimes grow restless before a blizzard, pacing or howling long before humans notice any change. The conversation drifts to hunting seasons, when the sea ice is thick enough for seal hunting, when the caribou herds migrate, when it's safest to travel across certain fjords. The timing is everything. Too early, and the ice may not hold. Too late,
and you might starve waiting for game to return. One of the older women laughs softly and says something that makes everyone chuckle. You get it translated. Sometimes the animals do not follow our schedule. The whole igloo fills with a low ripple of laughter. You find yourself smiling too, warmed not just by the lamp, but by this quiet fellowship. These people face a world where one wrong move could mean disaster, yet they carry that knowledge with grace and even humor. After a while, the group grows quieter, each person slipping into their own rhythm of preparing for the night. Parkas are brushed free from frost, boots placed near the entrance so they won't get too warm and wet. You're shown how to hang your mittens near the roof where warm air gathers, drying them by morning. When everyone settles down, there's a moment of pure, shared stillness. The wind outside has picked up slightly, humming against the dome, but in here, the air is calm. You lie back, staring at the faint shadow of the lamp's wick on the ceiling, and think about how much you've learned in just a couple of days. How to build shelter, how to find food, how to listen to the sky. The igloo seems to breathe with you, warm and solid, its curved walls holding you like a protective shell. And as you feel yourself sliding towards sleep, you realize that out here, knowledge is warmth, and warmth is life. You close your eyes with a quiet smile, ready for whatever tomorrow brings.
Morning comes with a strange stillness, the kind that almost feels like a farewell. When you crawl through the tunnel and stand outside, you find the storm has swept the sky clean. The horizon glows in soft pastel colors, pale gold, lavender, and icy blue. It is breathtakingly quiet, as if the whole Arctic is holding its breath. The others are already up, preparing for the day. They pack their sleds with calm efficiency, tying bundles of gear with practiced knots. You help where you can, but you know this is your last morning with them. Breakfast is simple: a few more strips of dried meat, a cup of warm broth. Everyone eats in companionable silence, and then one of the men claps you lightly on the shoulder. It's a gesture of approval, of goodbye. You take a moment to look around at the camp, the cluster of igloos shining like little moons under the morning sun. You remember how they looked last night, glowing softly from within, and you feel a pang of gratitude. These domes were never meant to last forever, but the memory of their warmth will. Before leaving, you turn back and help smooth the snow over the tunnel entrance, sealing the igloo shut. It feels ceremonial, like closing a door behind you. The group sets off in one direction with their sleds, dogs barking eagerly, while you turn your steps towards your own path. You pause to watch them disappear over a low ridge, their figures growing smaller until they are gone. You stand for a moment longer, breathing in the frozen air, and realize you are not the same person who staggered through the snow 2 nights ago, desperate for shelter. You have learned to read the sky, to carve shelter from nothing, to share food and laughter in a place most would call empty. You tighten the straps on your pack, take one last look at the smooth horizon, and start walking. Your feet crunch over the hard snow, the sound crisp and reassuring. The wind picks up slightly, brushing your hood, but you do not flinch. You carry the warmth of the igloo inside you now, and it will last longer than any fire. And as the white world stretches before you, you smile. The Arctic no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like a teacher, harsh but fair. Now the story slows, soft as snow drifting down. Imagine the horizon fading into mist as you walk. The crunch of your boots grows quieter, the sound becoming distant until it's just a rhythm, like a slow heartbeat. The cold air doesn't bite anymore. Instead, it feels cool and refreshing on your skin, like a deep, steady breath. You picture the igloo behind you, its perfect dome glowing faintly in memory, a little pearl in the endless white. Its warmth lingers, not just on your skin, but somewhere deeper, where fear once sat. You remember the way the lamp's flame flickered on the wall, the soft laughter inside, the feeling of safety when the wind howled. Your body feels heavier now, but in a good way, like you're being gently pressed down into soft snow, like the earth is telling you it's okay to rest. The sky grows darker in your mind's eye, not with storm clouds, but with calm twilight. The stars appear one by one, shining steady and cold, yet somehow comforting. You let yourself lie down, the snow beneath you shaped perfectly to hold you. Your breathing slows. Each inhale feels like filling your chest with clean, icy light. Each exhale feels like letting go of everything heavy, every worry, every stray thought. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then quiets. The Arctic night is still. The dome of the sky feels like a vast igloo overhead, keeping you safe. And in that silence, you let go. You let the world grow soft around the edges. Let your thoughts melt like snow in the lamplight until there is only warmth, only stillness. Good night. Sleep deeply. You've earned it. End of script. Sweet dreams.